we've had a whole lifetime of masking. We've had a whole lifetime of people pleasing because we don't feel good enough because we're always trying harder than our neurotypical peers. It's really exhausting.
Welcome to Reclaim Your Voice, a podcast for women in business who are ready to lead with more clarity, more ownership, and more confidence in who they already are. I'm Savannah Madden, confidence coach, public speaker, and the founder of award-winning theatre school Madden Theatre Arts. This is not about becoming someone new, it's about returning to your voice and leading in a way that feels aligned. Here we explore confidence, leadership, visibility, business growth, and the real shifts that happen as you evolve. If you know you're capable of more, you're in the right place. This is Reclaim Your Voice. Hello and welcome back to the show. I am so delighted to be joined by an incredible guest today who is the CEO of Realign, and she supports high achieving people with ADHD. So without further ado, Ria Teja, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me today, Savannah. I really appreciate this time together, and I've been really excited to have a conversation with you about this today.
Yeah, I cannot wait to get stuck in. So I would love for you to tell us, Ria, who you are, who do you support, what do you do in your own words so we can get to know you a little bit better if we've never come across you before.
Yeah, no problem. So, I specialise in supporting people who are late diagnosed ADHD or ADHD, or even just questioning, is this ADHD? So I help them work with their brain rather than against it, because so many people feel like they need to live in this neurotypical world and fit into society, but it's so much more than that. So together we rebuild confidence, learn to harness strengths, develop strategies, so life feels less chaotic and less overwhelming and more manageable. So my mission really is to help people move from overwhelm to feeling really in control, gaining clarity and confidence so they can just live and thrive in their everyday life and work. Generally feel so much happier.
Yeah, oh my goodness. I think all of us need that, whether we're neurodiverse
Oh,
or not, don't
absolutely.
we?
So true.
But of course, it's so important because, as you brilliantly put there, a lot of our situations are set up for a neurotypical world, and we're
Mm,
finding out more and more that more of us are neurodiverse. So it's great that we've got
mm.
someone like you to come to for some support. So can you tell us a little bit more about your own story and how you ended up coaching high achievers with ADHD or any type of
Mm.
neurodiversity, or suspected as well? I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you know what? My journey started many years ago in coaching. So I've been a coach for many years, and I think for a long time I've questioned, I feel like my brain works differently. And as a coach, as you'll know this, Vanna, that actually you question a lot about yourself, like the way your brain works, and do a lot of self-reflection. And through that time, and it was actually through my previous coaching qualifications, I actually went down the road of sort of exploring more about neurodivergence, what it meant, and really hyper focusing on all things neuroscience as well. So I really got to understand the brain. And throughout this time, it was, and doing my own research, I went to my GP and I said, oh, this is what I think is going on here. And one thing led to another. And I sort of explained to them I wanted to go down to the right to choose option, which meant that actually I went through a private provider funded by the NHS. So that meant I got my diagnosis slightly quicker rather than the NHS. But it was quite a roller coaster, if I'm going to be honest, because I received that diagnosis of ADHD and I thought, you think, oh, the expectation was going to be, oh, I knew the answer anyway. But actually, it's such a roller coaster of emotions, of actually frustration, like a feeling of like grief from your past self. And just questioning everything and thinking to myself, oh my goodness, this is a condition that I have to work with for the rest of my life. But actually, it's challenging that mindset to go, now I know this is a sense of identity for me. And this is, an explanation to, that past self of mine. And really used it to actually completely changed my life, but in such a positive way, because I actually, from there really did sort of grow a next level confidence. I really did think to myself, like, this is going to change everything now, because I know why I was feeling the way I was feeling, why I found certain things so challenging. And I'm going to use this to actually not let anything hold me back anymore. And then, following that, it took my business to the next level. And, in everything I do, in fact, it's just, I think it gave me the answers that I was always looking for. And it really helped shape the person I am. So, knowing what I knew about myself, that is when I was like, well, this is what I got to do. This is my calling. I need to go and help other people that have ADHD, or diagnoses often co-occur. So a lot of the people I work with have ADHD and autism. And, together we learn to work with the brain rather than against it. I went on to do further qualifications to really specialize in this subject, and there is no looking back. And I love every minute about what I do now.
I can just hear and see in you how passionate you are about this. And I definitely agree about callings. And
Yeah.
this is very evidently your calling. And
Yeah.
I just wanted to pick up on one of the points you made quite early on about it being a bit like you were quite you sort of knew that you were going to be told that you had ADHD when you got to that process. However, that didn't actually make it any easier, and you still felt
Mm.
all these different emotions, because one of my team members is autistic and has ADHD, and she was going down the right to choose and got her autism diagnosis, and then about a year later got the ADHD diagnosis. And she said, I was kind of assuming that I had both, but her ADHD diagnosis really hit her really hard. And she said loads of the similar things that you just mentioned about the grief and, all the sort of pain she'd been through in her earlier years, not knowing what it was that she was battling with and all of this. So I'm so pleased that you've brought that up, because I think that so many people listening who are in a similar situation, or may suspect, or may be thinking, oh yes, I definitely tick a few boxes and what have you, knowing that that's perfectly normal to feel those things.
Absolutely. And I would say the majority of the people that I work with, would say exactly the same. The thing is, it becomes a feeling of like, okay, I got this diagnosis. What now?
Mhm.
Like, what now? And obviously there's the option of medication. And at the time they said to me, like, talking therapy. But, as a coach, and I've had plenty of coaching myself, and it's helped me so much, and me being a coach and having the tools have helped so much. But I thought to myself, oh, well, everybody else. I've, over the years, this has been 10 plus years, I've been on a coaching journey myself. So I have plenty of tools, and I was able to, really, find out what works for me. But then how about everybody else that doesn't have those tools, doesn't have this experience, and are just left? Because, it, even with medication, it is still having support alongside that to make sense of everything, the past, the present, the future. Let's have the strategies. Let's learn to work with it. So nothing is holding anybody back.
And for anyone listening right now who might be thinking to themselves, what does, late ADHD look like in real life? What would you say about that? Obviously everyone's different, but typically what does that kind of look like for people?
Yeah, well, it will look very different for everybody, because there is no one size fits all. And then we have to bear in mind that, like I say, is ADHD can often co-occur. So we see ADHD and dyslexia, not ADHD and autism, which is ADHD. So this is very common. However, I think when we're thinking about what it looks like, so break it down. ADHD, our executive function is delayed, and it could be by approximately 30%. So that means things like working memory, organization, planning, self control, so like impulsivity as well, time management, Emotional regulation is another big one, will find these areas more challenging. So if anyone is experiencing and thinking, oh yeah, these are the things that I'm feeling really difficult in my everyday life, that is a sign that actually, perhaps it's worth, looking more into ADHD. Because I think when we think about the stereotypes, if I was to ask you, what is the stereotype of ADHD? What would you
Oh
say?
gosh, here we go. All of the stereotypes. I love it. Okay, because I just would like to caveat that I don't believe any of these, but the stereotypes are young little boys who don't have
Yes.
any attention span and are really naughty and are really
Yeah, yeah,
hyperactive
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
irritating and da 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 da. And also, I would say potentially lazy is another word that
Mhm.
I have heard people
Mhm.
band around a lot. What else is a good stereotype? Because obviously in my other business, I work with loads of young people. I've worked in school settings, so I'm very abreast, Senkos, and I've worked
Yeah,
with loads of Senkos and things like that.
yeah,
So yeah, I love these. What else?
yeah.
Well, okay, no, that's not really a stereotype. That's more something that I know. But yeah, come on, there we go.
Yeah, yeah,
Hyperactive,
absolutely.
annoying, naughty, and boys as well. Pigeonholing the
Yes.
boys.
Yes. And there absolutely not enough research there, but an interesting, very similar background. My background's working with children, young people that are neurodivergent as well. And I've gone on to focus on adults too. But yeah, absolutely. We think of, challenging boys at school, the ones that are bounced off the walls, but it is absolutely not the case. There is so much more to it. Firstly, there's 3 different types of ADHD. We have the hyperactive type, we have the inattentive type, and we have the combined type. So, like I said, that shows you more that everybody will it will look so different to everybody in so many different ways. But I think one of the things that's really important to recognize that up to the age of 12 years old, these young people will receive up to 20,000 more negative comments than their neurotypical peers. So what we need to be thinking about as well is how that impacts you like later on in life, because this is what can trigger the emotional regulation, that can trigger the RSD, which is rejection sensitive dysphoria. So by the time we get onto those adult years, actually what is happening, we've had a whole lifetime of masking, we've had a whole lifetime of people pleasing because we don't feel good enough, because we're always trying harder than our neurotypical peers. And it's hard. It's
Exhausting, it
really,
sounds
really
like.
exhausting. It is really exhausting because that's the life we live. So by the time you get to your adulthood, no wonder you get to a point of having the self-doubt, questioning, am I good enough? Questioning like your level of confidence. And there can be challenges in multiple areas of life. But it is, it's just going through years and years of the unknown. Now, potentially, if we'd known earlier, then these things could have been managed, and working on our strengths, working on our confidence, working on the self-esteem from a young, those younger years. It is, and now I see, and I work with so many people that didn't get that help and support, were often misdiagnosed with depression and anxiety. And now it's like, okay, let's relearn myself, my sense of identity, who I am, and let's work with it, because this is not going to hold me back. It shouldn't hold us back. And, I've been able to achieve so much in my life. Like, I've got this love of learning. So my hyper focus has often been like anything to do with education. I've gone and I've got my degrees and done multiple qualifications and many different things, because as ADHDs get hyper focused on their, their next new topic. But coaching has been my ongoing passion for a very, very long time. And I'm so glad I found that, because it's been able to help so many people in the meantime.
Yeah, absolutely. So, a couple of things I want to pick up on that I plan to ask you about anyway. One of them is rejection sensitivity with
Mm,
dysphoria. Would love to delve into that a little bit deeper.
yeah.
And another one was about masking. And before we dive into those two, I just want to tap into as well, because lots of things you said there, I think, really relate to the profile of the person of ADHD that you
Mm,
typically work with who are high achievers. So, does that feed into masking quite a lot, would you say? Or would you say they're
mm.
completely two different things if you're a high achiever? What does a high achiever look like?
Well, I would have to say, when it comes to high achievers, it is always thinking, I want more, I can do more. And what high achievers often do is actually push the bar up constantly to wanting to succeed. We're often living a life, especially even for many years of trying to push through, trying to prove to others, I can do this. And actually being very successful. However, on the outside, on paper, doing an absolutely wonderful job, and they are. However, the difference is on the inside, it's hard. It can be overwhelming, it can be exhausting, and what then happens, it leads to burnout. So a lot of people that I work with are going through this constant battle of burnout. And now that's what we have to stop, because it's amazing. I think we think, "Oh, that's amazing being high achieving, wanting more, wanting to be successful." And it is, that is, that's amazing, but it's not amazing what can come alongside it, which, like I say, is the burnout and the exhaustion and the, living life in that vicious cycle of, going through that over and over again. Um, and it hits hard. And, what we can potentially see as people going through then meltdowns, or just having like, as we see, is almost like a breakdown in the background. And it does link to masking, because often, we don't want to show it. Just people in general, nobody wants to show any sign of, potentially it might, feel like it's a weakness. As we know, it's not, but people don't want to show that. So it is masking in, various different environments. And also, it could be a masking just because, that worrying and the fear of judgment, fearing of what other people may think. And the thing is, the more we bottle that up, the more it builds up. And is, you know, that is exactly what I work with people on. So we prevent that from happening over and over again.
So you basically
Mm.
see people repeating that same sort of cycle
Mm.
of really pushing themselves to reach their full potential or even more than that potentially. And then they're completely burning out and then they recover from that and then they just repeat the cycle over and over again.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's what they've spent their, previous years doing. And that's what we often work through as well. So we can prevent that keep happening.
What sort of tools and techniques are you offering to your clients to try and stop this cycle?
Mm. So I do work with a executive functioning skills framework. So that works on those areas that I've spoken about before. And that does cover also, like I said before, about the emotional regulation and the rejection sensitive dysphoria. So we dive deeper. So we go sort of beyond the surface of that. And um, really, the key thing is having the self awareness. So I help support people gain that self awareness about what is going on, so we can learn how to break the cycle, basically. And it is looking at life and, really recognizing, sometimes some things have to give as well. We are very quick. I know you yourself as well, being a mum or a parent, and potentially being a business owner, or being in a job where you're very high level and you're very senior in what you do. So you're giving so much to everybody else. And what I've noticed about a lot of people, and I've been there myself, giving so much to everybody else and not actually taking that time for yourself to say, right, what do I need? What am I not giving myself? When was the last time I recharged my battery? And these are things, it's key. It is key. It's key for everybody. It's so important for everybody. The thing is, when we're neurodivergent, it's especially important because we're more likely to get burnt out. We're more likely to feel overwhelmed because of the emotional regulation. And so it's so important to listen to ourselves, listen to what we need, and ask ourselves if we're on a stress level and we're already, for ask myself, right, where am I? 0 to 10 on the stress level. If I'm thinking to myself, I'm already at a 5, whether that's stress or overwhelm, if I'm already at a 5, I need to be thinking to myself, what do I need to do to lower that? Let's not get beyond a 5. Let's not wait till we're a 9 or a 10 to do something about it. I shouldn't be recharging my batteries. I shouldn't be focused on self-care if I'm already at a 9 or 10. I should be working on it lower. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I love a number scale as well. I feel like many people can relate to 1 is really low and 10 is really high, you know? So,
Yeah.
um, and I think that the benchmark you gave of a 5, you should not be going higher than that, is a
Mm,
really great place to be because that's halfway in between. I think many
yeah.
people might be like, "Oh, it's all right if I'm at a 7." I would probably say that in some situations. "Oh, yeah, yeah, my stress levels are about a 7. It's fine," you know? But actually, no, give yourself the grace. Like, you can't be going over a 5. I love that. That's a really good takeaway.
Because we're already getting to the peak then, isn't it?
Of
It's
course.
already we've got to undo that. We've got to undo more work. So let's aim lower. Let's not get ourselves to that point. And yeah, just start looking at ourselves and what we need more. Because I generally feel like if we are spending more time on going, right, what do I need today? What's going on for me? That, and focusing on, what we need in ourselves to look after ourselves, we're only going to be a better person for everybody around us. I know that if I'm looking after myself, if I'm not getting burnt out, if I'm not getting overwhelmed, then I'm going to be a better version of myself for the people around me, for my partner, for my child, for my clients, the people I work with, really importantly, and also my friends and my family. Like it's so important. I feel like I'm showing up for the best version of myself. I'm not going to do that if I'm overwhelmed. I've been there before. It's not a nice place to be. And I know I will never get there again because I've got the tools and the strategies now. I implement them on a daily basis. And I feel like I have so much clarity now. I can think clearly. I can make good decisions. I'm not, constantly masking anymore. I'm not having that fear of what anyone else thinks because actually I know what my priorities are now.
Must be such a relief being in that place, not feeling like you're putting this mask on and, behaving in a way that doesn't feel aligned with you. So can you tell us, Ria, what that looks like for you in terms of what is one of your like go-to things that you do to ensure that you're not overwhelmed?
Yeah. Well, this has been a very big one for a very long time now. Routine is really super important to me. And my go-to has always been exercise. And I swear by it. And I've always been one to prioritize waking up in the morning and it starts from the night before. My gym stuff is ready. My trainers are by the door. My bottle is ready by the door. My bag's good to go. I get up in the morning. I leave the house early before anyone wakes up to go and do my workout. Now, before I knew I had ADHD, I used to joke with my other half at the time of saying, yeah, but this is, like, this is like my form of medication, not knowing, that actually in some ways that's exactly what it was doing because it was giving me the dopamine hit I needed, the endorphins. I was feeling fresh and focused and ready to go in the morning. Now I noticed, actually, it was during COVID that that routine was gone. It was literally ripped under my feet, and it was actually one of the lowest times of my life because. Yeah, obviously, not only I wasn't able to go to the gym and do my normal routine. I didn't know how much that would affect me, but it impacted even my mental health. I literally did not know what to do with myself. I didn't feel as focused. It was like something really was missing. And but as soon as I got back into that routine, again, it was like someone had switched it back on for me. And I had the focus, the clarity, the organization, like everything back. And I was able to like stick to my routine. So again, like my routine is, very much like a part of my life. I joke with my friends about it. Like it's like cleaning my teeth. It's just not something I can remove. It's just a part of who I am. And it really generally does help in a massive way. But even it doesn't have to be like a hardcore like gym workout. I notice even when I go for a walk in the fresh air or have a jog round the block or anything that is, it's really stimulating my mind and it's bringing so much clarity, that helps as well. Like I say, it doesn't have to be huge. It just has to be like a little something that makes you feel good, finding what works for you. And that can be game changing in itself.
Definitely. And I love that exercise is one of those things that gives us that natural high, as you say, the endorphins and
Mm,
it doesn't even need to be anything intense, as you say. Like I get loads of my best ideas out for a walk or something. I went for a quick walk
yeah.
just before we hit record, just because I'd been indoors for about 4 or 5 hours, and I was
Mm,
just like, do you know what? I just need a bit of fresh air to like reboot, reboot me, ready to go
yeah.
for some, you know, high intense
Mm,
work, I like to
yeah.
call them, because it's really like we're like really concentrating and listening and
Yeah.
talking and all of that sort of thing. So yeah, it's absolutely amazing. I love that
Yeah.
that's your
Yeah.
go-to tool. So a lot of things that we talk about on this show is confidence and using your voice and being able to speak up and say the things that you want to say. So how does ADHD and in particular rejection sensitivity dysphoria affect someone's ability to speak up or be seen, whether that's in their life or in their business, when perhaps they don't have the tools and techniques at their disposal at the moment because they're not quite sure what they should be doing to manage their life in that regard?
Yeah, that is such a good question, actually, because RSD is such a huge topic that actually not everybody is fully aware of, and the link to ADHD and neurodivergence in general, actually. And it really is so eye opening. And I'm so glad it's like a topic that people speak more about now, because I would say 100% of my clients can relate to rejection sensitive dysphoria. And I would say when it comes, what I personally found is speaking up about myself and my diagnosis diagnosis of ADHD. At the start, it wasn't easy. I'm not going to lie, it wasn't easy. And I didn't even know if I was going to tell anyone. And I know a lot of people will feel the same. So I think for me, it was gradually, I started talking about it more with people that I felt able to share, but I didn't know who. This is another good point with like the coaching. Like coaching is a safe place to go, or to start with, and feeling like I know I can trust you and I can talk. I want to make sense of it first. And that's always a really good place to start, and finding those people that you're able to talk to if you feel like you can't talk about it. It's not easy for everybody, and it certainly wasn't easy for me at the start. And when I look back now, it blows my mind. Like I'm so open about it on social media because it's gone from one extreme to the other, because now there is just no holding me back. It's obviously what I do for a living. Everyone I talk to, we end up having a conversation about ADHD. But what I have found so empowering about it, when I have said, I'm a coach who specialises in ADHD and I was late diagnosed myself, it is amazing. Like the response is always such a positive, incredible response. And where people can even relate to themselves, their children are being diagnosed, they're going through a diagnosis, their partner, and we are talking about it so much more. And it is just been so reassuring in itself. And I do still have moments, if I'm going to be honest, like RSD does, it still kicks in because it stems way back. It's been a part of me all of my life. but it is something that I've worked through. I'm in a good place with it. I still have to challenge my mindset. I still have to reframe my thoughts. And these are, the things that I work with my coaching clients is we reframe it, we challenge it, we take control of it. We don't let RSD control us. We've had enough of that. And moving on from it is the most empowering experience you can go through, because, it is coming out the other side. And I remember years ago, when I got diagnosed, thinking that wasn't going to be possible. And I proved it wrong. So yeah, I'm in a good place with it now.
I just can't even imagine. I don't even know you that well, Ria, but I just can't even imagine you not talking about having ADHD. Like, that's
Oh,
amazing.
honestly.
But I think you make a really good point there, though, that it's not necessarily for everybody to be talking so openly about it. They might not feel ready to. It might take a bit of time. And also, if people don't want to talk about it, that's also okay, isn't it? Because, not
Absolutely.
everybody has to share
No.
their personal journey with everybody, because they might want to keep that private, and that's totally cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
I also want to pick up on, obviously, you asked me earlier about the stereotypes around ADHD, and I gave you some good ones, I think.
You did.
But what about the biggest misconceptions about ADHD in adults, though? Because I was kind of
Mm,
referring to the sort of young, sort of 8-year-old boy in primary school. Poor boys getting that stereotype. Because obviously there are
yeah.
young boys that are experiencing that. But of course, there are lots of young girls and everybody experiencing all these different things. So, what are the biggest misconceptions about productivity and focus and time management when it comes to ADHD, particularly in adults?
Yeah. Yeah, that is a really good question, because I personally think I hear a lot that people with ADHD can't focus, or,
Yeah,
are always late. And I
yeah,
can tell you for certain that is not the case. Now, so to put it this way, people with ADHD have an interest-based nervous system, which means when they are interested in something, can become very, very hyper-focused. So, for example, when I was doing my qualifications, I was very hyper focused. I was so focused in everything I was doing. In fact, I was the first person to hand in my assignments. My dissertation gets handed in before everybody else. I, I threw everything into it. And also it wasn't at the last minute. It wasn't,
mm,
if it was something, if I wasn't interested in a topic, for example, back in the day when I was, I don't know, doing maths or something at school, I would be leaving that to the last minute because I'd have no interest. So that is the difference. So you can become very focused in the things that you enjoy, that you're interested in. However, the things that you're not interested in, that's when there's a problem. That's when it feels challenging. And it's the same, like so time management. It's not the case that, we're always late. If anything, I'm often always, and there's so many people that would say it, are actually it could be super rare because we're so conscious about it. So it's more like time blindness is probably the way to phrase it. So it could also be so early because the fear of like, I'm going to be late, I'm going to let them down. And that, the people pleasing comes back in, or the perfectionism comes in as well. So, but yeah, it does go back to actually there is, it's not one size fits all. Everybody is so different. And, when it goes back to experience and life experience and things, that they fear or worry about, that can be a part of, the bigger picture as well.
yeah. And so, just so many great things covered there, because I just am like, oh yeah, because I'm probably like the opposite of all of those. Like, I
Mm,
suffer from time blindness where I really underestimate how long things are going to take. That's one of my biggest weaknesses. I was talking to somebody else about it just earlier today, and she gave me some really good tips on how to look into some other things about how I operate, which is very interesting. But I won't go into that right now. If someone listening right now is thinking, I feel like I identify with a lot of the things that have been discussed today, what's maybe one simple step that they could take to better understand themselves right now?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it is going back to self-awareness is key, and it's not for everybody, but journaling is a really great way. Some people need more structured questions. Now, there's a lot of really like good ways now of getting some good journaling questions, whether like you're Googling that or looking for AI for some questions for journaling just to get you started. That can be a really good way of really being able to have that, like the self-awareness. And that really is, it's key. It's key. And I work with all of my coaching clients, when it comes down to it, is having the self awareness is that first step, is the foundation. Without that, how are we expected to, when it comes to the executive function, how are we expected to improve the working memory or the organizational planning or the self-control or the emotional regulation if we don't have the self-awareness? So going back and starting at that foundation, that to me I'd say is really key.
I love journaling. I recommend it so much to my clients. And it's about joining the dots, isn't it? It's about having that initial self awareness, trying to write down some things that are going on for you. I think prompts can be so useful because some of us just don't respond just to just aimlessly writing, just a bit like, what is
Yeah,
this? But some of us do, which is awesome. It's all about like joining those dots together though, isn't it? Because you can start to organize your thoughts a little bit more and make sense of a few more things. And then you can take another step
yeah,
forward, whether that's talking to a professional, getting a coach or
mm,
whatever it is. So I think that's a fantastic first step that is also free and you can do right now. So it's a really
absolutely.
good
Yeah.
first step. I love that.
I encourage my clients to do a lot is just brain dumping. Now, I absolutely love this, especially before bed. Getting all of those thoughts. I say before bed. I also fit in the morning before before I start the day. Is working out. Okay, this everything that is going on for me right now. I've got to get all of the thoughts out, write it down, and it doesn't have to be neat. It doesn't have to be tidy. I often do it on like a big sort of like A3 size bit of paper and just get it all out there, get all the thoughts out there. And again, that's a really good way of just making sense of it, join the dots. And sometimes as well, like prioritizing those things, because that can help with, we often think about like to-do lists, but if we get it out first and then we can prioritize and then, I often as well block them out into different sections. So if there's a lot I need to do. I will be thinking of it like this is urgent, this is not urgent, this is what I can delegate, this is what I can get rid of, and really be able to structure, whether it's structuring my day better or just getting everything out before I go to bed because I'm like, okay, I know what it is that I need to work on and I can come back to that. It's just not now. I'm gonna now go to bed.
Exactly. I love that advice because having it all out, I think a lot of neurodiverse
Mm,
people and creative people really work well visually as
mm,
well. And I
mm.
think having that all
Mm,
just out in front of you, whether that's on an A3 sheet of paper, a
mm,
whiteboard, whatever, I find sometimes color coding it can really work well. And then
absolutely.
cluster the same jobs together. So what I always used to do was reply to emails with one of my businesses and then do something else that was connected to that business. But actually, what works better
Mm,
for me is just doing emails from all the inboxes all at the same time. So do all my theatre school emails, do all my coaching emails, do my personal emails. Da, 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 da. That's just what works for me. But clustering jobs that are the same, as it were, because you're sat down at your laptop anyway or at your computer and you can just do it right there and then, I think is a really great way to be structured with your time blocks and things like that.
yeah, yeah, and that is it, time blocking. time blocking is everything, isn't it? But it's
It's
finding
life.
a way. Yeah, exactly. And it is finding what works for you is absolutely key.
And what kind of transformations have you seen with your clients, Ria, who come to you, in their initial stages, and then when they fly the nest from you, let's say, what kind of transformations are you seeing?
Yeah. Well, incredible. To be honest, it's seeing the transformation is really why I do what I do. So when people come to me, I'm not gonna lie, like they've been going through a really tough time, whether they are just feeling lost or alone with it, overwhelmed is so common. To be honest, it's insane the amount of people that come to me and they're overwhelmed and they're burnt out and exhausted and they've just had enough. And, they've tried so many different things. And like, as we know, they get all like the notebooks and they think to themselves, like, today's the day, I'm going to like change everything. And then they realize, yes, the new notebook doesn't work. I feel like you can relate.
Guilty, guilty, guilty.
But I think for them, it's finding somebody that really does get it makes a huge difference. So I have is a structured coaching program that, like I said before, works with the executive function skills framework, and it's working through that. But like we've spoken about before, is having like the awareness that, they didn't realize actually we have so many aha moments and there's things that they think to themselves, I would never have thought about that. I would never have realized that if hadn't had this conversation. And then going through that transformation and then for them to have the accountability, they're taking action. So the things I hear from my clients is they'll come back to me the next week and they'll say, I have had the most productive week because since I got off the call with you, I felt so motivated afterwards because it's almost like they get like a bit of a dopamine fix, from it in a really healthy way of going like, I've come out of that, I've taken action straight away, did what I said we were going to do. Even during the week, I always check in with them and find out how they're getting on with things. And like I say, it's like that accountability and, being able to understand and work with their brain, having strategies and tools in place. By the end of the program, there is no doubt they are just feeling so much more confident. They've got techniques and strategies that actually work for them. They're, constantly taking action rather than procrastinating because they know where to start. Because a lot of the time we procrastinate when it feels really massive, when it feels really overwhelming. But when we break things down into smaller chunks, and like we said, like time blocking, having all of these things in place, well, life is manageable. The people I work with, they look different. I know it seems insane, but their shoulders are lowered. They seem lighter. They're smiling. They're happier. They talk about the impact it's having in a positive way on their family. Often they've got neurodivergent children. I'm able to help them with that because of my background working with neurodivergent children. So it's so holistic. We work with every part of their life as well. And to see that transformation, to see, people say to me like, this has been life changing. This is priceless. This has changed my whole family dynamic. Now, to me, there's no better feeling in the world knowing that I've made a difference to their life. But, they've taken the action. They've done this. And previous to that, they wouldn't have necessarily felt that was possible. But to see that is, yeah, it's huge. It's amazing. It's so lovely to see, and it really is what I do and why I'm so passionate. You could probably hear the passion within me because when I see these results, it makes everything worth it.
What a rewarding role to have. It just sounds absolutely incredible. And what I really love as well is that you've talked quite a lot about the science behind it, but also how you have a holistic approach. So you've got
Mm,
all the research and all the qualifications and all the incredible training and work and experience that you've got,
mm,
but also the holistic side of things, to make it really personal to each client that you work with, and your own experiences make it so much more personal as well, you know. So I think that's always really important when you're working with somebody. So I think that's probably a lovely place to start wrapping things up, Ria. So I always love to ask everybody, where can we find you to connect with you? And
So you can find me at Realign Coaching on Instagram, and that's RI_align. You could also find me at Ria Taher on LinkedIn. And at the moment, I am offering free one-to-one clarity calls. Do feel free to find me on Instagram and book in a clarity call, and then we can get to know each other and find out what coaching program would suit.
that sounds amazing. And of course, I'll link all of that up in the show notes.
Yeah.
So you'll just be one click away to realign yourself. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you. Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you so much, Ria. I think I have learned so much today about how people's brains work, what ADHD looks like for different people, and how you do not have to do it alone. You do not have to suffer in silence. You do not have to keep putting that mask on for the rest of your life. No fake it till you make it round here, you know?
Absolutely not.
So I really hope that if there is anybody listening right now who identifies with anything we've been talking about, they can reach out and have a chat with you. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Reclaim Your Voice. If today's conversation resonated, then head to the show notes where you'll find my free audio gift. And if this episode helped you in any way, it would mean so much if you shared it, rated or reviewed the show. That support helps these conversations reach the people who really need them. You can also watch the full episode on YouTube. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you soon.